Welcome to the Texas Conflict Coach radio program. If you've ever experienced or engaged in destructive or unresolved conflict, then you know it leads to broken relationships, distrust, and damaging results. Our program will help you manage and resolve conflict effectively with strategies, valuable resources, and support. Since 2009, our radio program hosted guest experts from around the globe sharing their perspectives, experiences, and expertise while giving you food for thought. If you can't listen live, then download and listen to any of our 300-plus podcasts in our library at texasconflictcoach.com. So sit back, relax, or join the conversation every Tuesday evening, or tweet us at TXConflictCoach.
Hi, this is Zena Zunetta, your guest host for today's program. Today, not only do we celebrate the beginning of Conflict Resolution Month, but we kick off our workplace series with When Business Departments Collide, Tools for Equitable Solutions. In October, Conflict Resolution Month is celebrated through a variety of educational events and peace-building initiatives. This workplace educational series honors this internationally recognized endeavor. To learn more about conflict resolution events and activities, visit the Association for Conflict Resolution at www.acrnet.org. In the dynamics of organizations, there are times when divisions or departments or specific people within these divisions and departments appear to have differing agendas. Sales leadership implements a CRM system, and the sales team views this as an impediment to selling and being in the field. A company division considered a cost center is competing for resources with a division that is revenue generating. These differing agendas can and most likely will create conflict between the divisions. This conflict can result in loss of productivity, low morale, and loss of key personnel. The other, more production option is to use specific skills to transform that conflict into positive change. My guests will discuss the underlying reasons for conflict and the tools to assist in creating positive and equitable solutions. Joining me are Dawn Miller-Sander and Nicole Parada. They have managed teams in corporate America for a combined 40-plus years. So through their years of experience, they have developed a passion for helping others transform the inevitable conflict that happens in the workplace into positive change. In 2012, Dawn launched her consulting company, Conflict Transformation Associates. Through training, consulting, and coaching, Dawn and Nicole empower their clients with the skills necessary to master all conversations and situations containing conflict. Welcome to the program, Dawn and Nicole.
Thank you for having us.
Dana. Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. So let's start out with me asking you, can the two of you talk a little bit about the kind of work you do in organizations?
Oh, yeah, thanks for the question, Zena. This is Nicole, and I'll address that one. So generally when we work with an organization, they're in the midst of a conflict. And by conflict, we just mean, viewpoints are colliding. So conflict, as we've seen, comes in many different shapes and sizes. For example, the American people right now are in the midst of a big conflict with our government right now, with the shutting down of the government. It's kind of big, right?
Yeah.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there's that, Susie Q sitting in her office next to Johnny Joe, who continues to clear his throat all day and continues to annoy her and distract her. So there's kind of two ends of that spectrum. And when we're working with organizations, they've gotten to the point of whatever type of conflict they're having in their organization is beginning to affect their bottom line or their morale. So when we go in there, our goal is to work with a client to help them to see that conflict, while initially it appears very bad, it's actually something that we don't want to avoid. We want to address it because it can create positive change. So to answer your question a little bit more directly, one of the examples that comes to mind immediately is a company we recently were working with was dealing with a leadership that wanted to implement a CRM application. So a CRM application is just simply a customer relationship management application that captures the data of all of the company's customers. Obviously, the people that are closest to that information are the sales and the customer service people. So when you're implementing a CRM system, it's required of the people touching the customers to enter all of that key data points like the names, the phone numbers, email contacts, and it can get a little bit even more robust than that in tracking emails. So this company that we were looking at, the leadership saw this information as very valuable to forwarding the business. Now, take it on the sales and customer service side, whose their top line initiative is they want to be in front of the customer to improve that customer service and to get to sales. So all they viewed this as was, hey, you're taking me out of the field, and now I have to enter all this data. Why do I have to do that? So as you can imagine, two kind of different points of view.
Yeah, so it sounds like on the one hand, the customer service people are saying, let me do my job, let me do customer service, and then the data people are saying, hey, wait a minute, to improve the whole process, we need the data, and we need to interfere with your work.
Exactly. And this is these types of differing points of view is something that we see across many different organizations. We've dealt with companies that, for example, they've been a long family-owned business, and now the owner is ready to pass it on to the son or the daughter. Well, they've both grown up in completely different environments. So when the daughter or the son are wanting to take that over, they have new ideas that they are wanting to implement. And, the father might be like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that.
Wow. So they could have very different ideas for where even they want the company to go.
Exactly. And that's usually when we're called in because they've reached a differing point of view that they no longer see there's a way to resolve it. Huh. And so we're coming in to change that view.
Yeah. Well, who hires you in a company?
The people with the money, which is generally, right? Yeah, it's generally the people that are seeing the effect to the bottom line of the company as a result of the conflict. So we really, most of the time we see that in the small and medium-sized business, it's going to be that owner of the company or the key leadership. But there's many times that we've worked with kind of larger organizations, and it's just been a key manager or key leader that had started the conversation and been able to sell it up into the leadership management, saying, hey, this is a problem that we're seeing, and it's something that can be changed.
Oh, wonderful. So people who really want to see the change are
exactly
the ones who bring you in. Oh, that's wonderful.
Exactly.
Well, what kind of challenges did the organizations and the people in them face in trying to resolve these issues?
Yeah, so the first challenge that we're usually dealing with is, when people called us in, they've come to the position where there's two opposing positions. They've come to the table with these preconceived notions of, in order for me to win, you have to lose. And that's usually, and that's usually generated when there's conflict and there's high stress situations. They tend to create that notion of, okay, I'm getting reactive, and my top line view and opinion is what's really driving any of my actions. And so, when we get into this situation, what we're seeing is the company is facing like a lack of productivity, low morale due to frustration, increased stress, and without the proper tools to address this, they kind of get to this point of we've reached an impasse.
So given that those are the challenges, what is it that you do to help? Yeah.
And I will take that one. I think the most important thing to understand is with all of the parties, no matter where they sit, they all come to their own table wanting to be successful. So in the case of an engineer wants a perfect design. The salesperson wants to make a big sale. The pricing people want to sell it at the highest possible price. So everybody is coming to the table to be successful. The problem is, or the situation is, everybody defines success differently. So when we do training and consulting, we want to give them tools that will help them work together through the conflict. And our philosophy...
So can you talk a little bit more about how they define success differently? That sounds interesting.
Oh, yeah. So, for example, an engineer who has 25 letters after his name designs, let's say it's a computer or a network or a toaster. He just has every single spec completely engineered. Now, in some cases, he's engineered a Cadillac, and the customer can only pay for a Chevrolet. So that's his idea of success, that it meets every single engineering requirement known on the earth. Then you have, like, the salespeople, you know, they want commission. That's what they work on. So they want to make a fast sale so that they get a commission check. So they're not as concerned if that engineering design meets every single spec. So success to the salesperson is, wow, I made my quota this month and my check's going to be large. And one other example is your leadership who's managing revenue. You know, they certainly want a good design. They also want it sold at a price where their revenue margins are met. And that may be a higher price than what the salesperson wants to sell the solution for. So does that answer your question, Dina? Just different.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a very good example because each of them in doing their job really well is in total conflict with the other departments.
Exactly. So, and that's why there's conflict, and that's why, you know, we're called in because two things. We want to teach people to fish. We don't want to give them fish. So our consulting and our training, we describe it as our nuggets. We want them to walk away with nuggets that they can really use tomorrow and the next day. So the first nugget is being aware of different viewpoints. So now that I've told you that an engineer wants to have a perfect design, the salesperson wants a fast sale, you as the salesperson come into the table understanding what the engineer is trying to do, you're going to probably approach them a little bit differently. So, again, the first nugget is being aware, finding the common ground and being aware of different viewpoints when you come into the table or when a discussion starts. And then the second nugget is we want people to understand and identify their conflict behavior. Now, this will take us back a little. There are many, many theories of conflict. One of the theories that resonates with Nicole and I the most is Bowen's family system theory. Now, everybody comes from a family. No way out of that one, okay? So what Bowen described is there are three ways in the family system that conflict is handled. One is aggressive. You think about a New York Italian. They sit at the dinner table and yell and scream. That's how they communicate, right? Then you take a look at the other style is avoiding or passive. An example of that is a person in your workplace that may not take up for themselves and just have people walk over them. And then the third is collaborative. So we would like the folks that we consult with to really start to look at what is their conflict behavior. Because once one understands their conflict behavior and the other behaviors, that gives you a tool to come to a table much more open.
Wow. That one is very exciting because it really gives people a handle not only on the behavior, but where the behavior came from.
Exactly. And you know what? Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to yourself, and you can relate to your family. You might not relate to them, but at least you know where you came from. And some of the triggers that get pushed all the time because that's how it was done at home. And that's how you walk into the workplace, to your education place, to your church space, to your home. So, again, that's just a nugget that we'd like them to walk away with because they can use that in many, many places. And then the third, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The third one is when they come to the table with their own viewpoint in mind, like their engineering mind or their sales mind, and then they come with their conflict behavior mind, that puts them at a place where they can start building relationships. They have their own ideas, but they also are reflecting and saying, well, I know this is what the engineer is going to be thinking. I know this is what, the leadership team is going to be thinking about as far as the revenue. So it empowers them to certainly get their point across, but also couching that with them understanding a little bit about how other people are coming to the table.
Wow. So what you've really put together is understanding the needs and interests of each of the departments, but then also the styles of the people at the table. So it's both organizational and personal. And then you put that together with, okay, now how can we actually collaborate to make it all work?
Exactly. And that's how, that's where we go in deeper when we do our consulting engagements. But we hope that with consulting and with the training, these people actually, they leverage the tools and can really have open discussions that can lead to win-win solutions. And again, the important thing there is we also want people to be better at home and better at school and better at church. If we teach them these skills, they're transferable anywhere, and that's what's really important to Nicole and I, that we're giving them things that they can use in places other than the workplace.
Oh, that's really nice. So on top of the understanding, you're really doing training and giving them the tools to make changes not only at work but in their lives in general.
Correct. And, I think sometimes that might sound like apple pie, but truly that's our intention. We want people to, be well-rounded in all aspects of their life with these new tools and skills.
Well, I think that's really exciting because what you're saying is that if I learn at work that I can listen, and if I learn at work what my style is, maybe I can apply that other places. So it's great.
Exactly. And so we think that seems real obvious and simple, and sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to perfect and practice. So that's why it's important for people to invest and take time, because if you're used to, jumping off the ledge when somebody makes you angry, that's going to be your first impulse. So learning these things is one thing, but then putting them into practice is the critical part.
Well, that's a good point. Well, let me remind people that you are listening to the Texas Conflict Coach Blog Talk Radio Show, and we are talking with Dawn Miller-Sander and Nicole Parada about when business departments collide and tools for equitable solutions. So can you give us a few success stories?
Yes, we certainly can. One of the more complex ones gives us the ability to tell you lots of, it was a bigger opportunity, so it's a lot more conflict involved. So basically we were called in there was an overall project team that was implementing a very complex technical solution. And basically the couple things were, it is an 18-month sales cycle. So you had 18 months from inception of the idea to creating it, presenting it, selling it, implementing it, billing it. So right there you have the customer, the sales team, engineering team, implementation team, operations team, billing team, life cycle, which is the people that sort of take care of it once it's completed. Then you have the client's pricing team and also sales leadership for revenue generation. So as you can see, there's 8 different competing views and objectives and 8 different definitions of what is a success. So what Nicole and I really were charged to do is, keep the process moving. And the way that we did that is sort of observing at first to kind of see what was happening. We could see, lots of conversations, lots of opportunities where the goals were completely, counter. They were not agreeing with each other. So what we did is we looked at educating and training these people on what is their emotional intelligence. How are they relating to themselves? How are they relating to others? And Nicole, you might want to say something there about emotional intelligence, if you will.
Yeah, so when we're looking at an organization, emotional intelligence, if no one's heard of that, it's just the evaluation and the measure of the ability to perceive, evaluate, and control emotions. So when we're working with an organization that recognizes the need, that they need to support this in their culture, we go through a series of training and exercises and coaching with the team, just help them foster the growth of those there's 4 EQ competencies. So we work with them to build those competencies so that they can work together better.
And so with that, putting that in the context of the engineers meeting with the salespeople or the salespeople meeting with the pricing people. So putting it in context to the conversations that they were going to be having became very important. The other is assertive communication, which a lot of that is, active listening skills, how to speak, say what you mean without making the other person wrong. And so as we, again, looked at all of the different department meetings and the conflicts in them, we overlay the skills. And they're practicing their skills, Zena, with real information. Why did you yell at the guy about his engineering design? Nothing wrong with his engineering design. It's just too expensive, right? So, again, that's how when you train people using their language and their product, it just becomes much easier. Okay, so that's all the internal client. Then you have the external, the customer. So as we continue to go and refine the solution, present it to the customer, and the customer, the client, their salespeople presented it and actually sold it. Okay, so then you go into a new area of conflict because their client came back and said, you know what, this is really expensive. And for the first 3 months, we can't fully use it. So we don't want to pay that much money. Well, again, as you can imagine, our client then says, well, I have revenue targets to meet. I have a commission check I want. Individual case basis, pricing people said, I don't have any more margin. So, again, like Nicole mentioned earlier, a seemingly impasse. Well, right. Nicole and I working with, again, skills, what is negotiating, what's possible, what's not possible. The net of that was in making all these people come together, here was the creative solution. The pricing people said, we can give you 50% off for the first 3 months if the salespeople have the customer agree to a 63-month contract versus a 60-month contract. So that is how it ended up, that the sales team working on the project were able to approach the customer and say, we understand that you're not going to be able to use this fully functionally in the first 90 days. We're willing to cut the price 50%, and what you need to do is extend it 3 months out. So again, that's kind of with what Nicole and I are doing. Again, overlaying the client information, the client departments with the appropriate skills and practice of the skills. And again, there was a lot of money. This company, our client, it was millions of dollars. So it paid for everybody to get along, work through, and bring it to conclusion.
Wow. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that you're using, when you talked about emotional intelligence, I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, engineers and salespeople and pricing people are listening to emotional intelligence? That must be hard.
Well, we didn't tell them the terms. We just taught them the tools.
Okay. And then, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, when you teach people these tools, it doesn't matter what perspective you come from. When you give them an avenue to avoid conflict and create a solution, they embrace it and changes their lives.
Oh, wonderful. Well, and also you were talking about the assertiveness, and that a lot of us think of assertiveness as speaking up, but for some people it's not being aggressive as well, so it can come from both ends.
Well,
absolutely.
And the key there is, you don't have to call it assertive communication. What we like to call it, too, is people want to tell their story. People want to tell their story, be listened to, and be respected for that. So that's like the same thing. I want to tell you, Zena, what's going on here, and part of assertive communication is for that person to listen, and then they can say what they're going to say. So again, just being able to tell the story, speak your truth, and have it heard, whether people agree or not isn't the point. It's that they're heard, and then movement can happen after that because everyone has an opportunity to speak.
Right. That makes a lot of sense to me. Well, you know, one of the things that we like to do on this program is to ask our guests to talk to the listeners about what might be the next step that they could take, what might be a call to action. So what suggestions do you have?
Well, I think that the first one would be we really hope that our talk tonight, our brief talk tonight, has shifted folks' point of view on conflict, that they're not afraid of it, they're not leery of having, you know, like difficult conversations. So it's like a roller coaster ride. Some children are so afraid of roller coasters they just don't want to go on it. But when that one friend says, well, let's try it, it's really fun, then they want to do it all the time. So it's the same thing here. You know, once they, you know, get into conflict, use some skills, they can see that it's not the end of the world and nobody's hitting each other. So again, we want them to have a different point of view and be willing to jump in and take on conflict in a different way. And so a recommendation, other than changing their viewpoint, is to research their family of origin from a conflict behavior standpoint. And also, Zena, you guys posted a book that Nicole and I recommended. It's all about Bowen's family system theory, although it doesn't say that. It's called Extraordinary Relationships, a New Way of Thinking About Human Interaction. It's a really good book that they can begin to peel apart their conflict behavior.
Oh, wonderful. So I'm wondering if you have any closing comments for our listeners.
Yes, we absolutely do, and this is Nicole. I'll address that. You know, one thing the final message we want to leave is just put the fear of conflict aside. Recognize that conflict is good because it can create positive change, and we hope that everyone out there will just embrace the conflict that they face in their lives and continue to build their skill sets to transform it.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Well, if you want to get hold of Nicole and Don, they have a website, www.transformationllc.com, and they have a phone number, 540-432-0451. And, of course, this information is on the Blog Talk Radio Texas Conflict Coach website as well. So I want to thank both of you, Don and Nicole, for a really interesting program.
Thank you very much, Zena.
Thank you for listening to the Texas Conflict Coach. We hope you've enjoyed the program. You can find over 300 podcasts archived to listen at your own convenience at texasconflictcoach.com or download the podcast at iTunes or Stitcher Radio. To learn about upcoming radio programs and resources, sign up for our monthly e-newsletter.